Guys, it's Sarah, and today I have my end of the year makeup inventory video for you. This is basically just where I keep tabs on how many products I own in each category. Lots of people do these videos on YouTube, and it's just a great way to keep your collection in check, especially if you're trying not to let your collection get too out of hand. And I have to say, I'm really happy with where most of my numbers are right now. There were a few times this year where certain categories were getting really out of hand, but I have brought some of them down to a level that I'm really happy with. So starting with the first category, which is face primers. My goal this year was to keep my face primer collection down to 5 or less, and I actually started the year with 6, and I now have 3 primers in my collection. So I am well under my original goal this year. For 2021, I decided to adjust a few of my goals for certain categories where maybe I feel like I can bring the number a little bit lower, somewhere. I think most of them I brought them lower. There were a few where I brought it up a little bit, I think, but for the face primer category, I decided to make my goal be 3 because I really feel like there's never a need for me to have more than 3 primers in my collection. I also go through primers pretty quickly compared to other types of products, so I feel like 3 is a good way for me to keep it manageable, but also to have a little bit of a variety. Next, for foundations, my goal this year was once again to have no more than 5 foundations at a time, and I started the year with exactly 5. I now have 4, so that is great. I'm really happy with that. So I have room for one more if I do decide to try another one next year. There was actually one point in 2020 that I had 7 foundations, and I did use up one foundation this year, the Balm Shelter Tinted Moisturizer. I also decluttered a couple that I just wasn't liking. Foundation is one area where I'm really picky, and if I don't feel like a foundation is making my skin look good, then I pretty much need to get rid of it if I can't find a way to use it that I like. So I'm pretty cutthroat in this area, but I'm really happy to have 4. I have some lighter coverage, some fuller coverage, some medium coverage, so I feel like all my bases are covered, but I also have a little bit of room to experiment with new ones next year. One category that really probably isn't going to change very much is shade adjusters. I do have 2 foundation shade adjusters in my collection, and my maximum goal is 2, so that is the same as it was 3 months ago, and I doubt that'll change very much because that's really just like a useful product more than anything. It's not something that I really feel the need to try new ones. For concealer, my goal again was 5. That is kind of like the magic number for me in a lot of areas. I started the year with 5, and I currently still have 5, so happy with that. Another category that I don't currently own anything in is color correctors. I originally set the goal of 2 back in September when I actually had 2 color correctors. I've since decluttered both because they didn't really make a difference for me. I haven't bought any new ones yet, and I decided to make my goal be 1 instead of 2. I just don't really feel like I would need more than 1 color corrector at a time. If I have one that works for me, that's great. I do feel like it's hard to find good color correctors. Then we have face powders. Once again, my goal was 5. I started the year with 5, and I now still have 5. I used a few powders up. I also purchased a few powders this year. This is another category where I want to adjust my goal number. So I do currently have 5. I would actually like to bring this number down to 3 in 2021 at some point. I guess by the end of 2021, I'd like to be down to 3. I've really kind of moved away from using setting powder on my face. I just feel like my skin looks way better when I don't use powder, so there's no need for me to have 5 powders. Absolutely no need. In a perfect world, I'd have 1, but let's start slow. Let's try to bring it down to 3. So that is a category where I need to keep an eye on next year to pan some of them and also maybe to declutter some in the future. Next we have setting spray. This year my goal was 3. I started the year with 2. I'm now up to 3. And I'm going to keep the goal of 3. I think that's very reasonable. I don't feel like I need to have a bunch of different setting sprays in my collection. That leaves room for maybe a glowy one, maybe more of a true setting spray. Next I have bronzer. My 2020 goal was 5 bronzers. I am down to 2. I realized this year that I'm really not that much of a bronzer person. I don't wear it every day. I tend to use contour more often than bronzer, and I do have bronzer and contour in 2 separate categories. And I've decided to bring my bronzer goal down to 3 instead of 5. I just don't need 5. If it's something I'm not using every day, I don't really get that excited about bronzers anymore, so I don't need to have too many of them floating around in my collection. My contour goal was 3. I still have 2. They're both cream contours. One of them, the Jordana one, is probably going to be finished within the first few months of 2021, and then the other one I have is the Oma Beauty one, and honestly I don't really feel like I'm going to have a need for 3, but just in case I maybe want to try another formula, I have room for that because I do really enjoy contour and I wear it pretty much every day. I feel like most people don't really do contour much anymore, but I love it. I feel like it's a much more natural look for me than bronzer. The two categories that I have been struggling in are highlighter and blush, and I do want to bring these down next year. So for highlighter, my 2020 goal was 8, and I started the year with 7, and I have almost doubled the size of my highlighter collection this year, which I don't know how that happened, I really don't. But I now have 13, and I am going to adjust my goal to 10. It was 8 in 2020. 2021, I'm going to say 10. So that does mean I want to shrink the size of my highlighter collection just a little bit. Hopefully through panning, I may have my eye on some highlighters to declutter or pass on to friends this year as well, because 13 is just so many. Several of those are cream and liquid, and there's no way I can use all of those up before at least a few of them dry out. So I really am probably going to be decluttering a few more of those this year at some point. I just probably need to test all of them out some more and see which ones I really truly need. But yeah, that category has gotten a little crazy. For blush, my goal this year was also 8, and I started the year with 8. I now have 11, so not quite as out of control as highlighter. Once again, I am going to raise my goal number to 10 instead of 8 for 2021. I think that that is a very reasonable goal because my Wet n Wild Rosé Champagne blush is almost finished. I recently repressed it. Probably going to take me another couple months to finish that one off, but the number will be down to 10 soon, even without decluttering any. For eyelid primer, my goal this year was 2. I started the year with 3. Currently I have 2, but I just recently ordered the ABH Sultry Vault. I got it on a really good sale, and that vault comes with the Sultry palette, which was the main thing I wanted, but it also comes with, I think, a mini of their eye primer. So that one I don't have yet. It won't be pictured in my picture that's on screen, but it is coming soon, so I decided to go ahead and count it towards my numbers. So that means I am back up to 3. One of them is a glitter glue, the NYX glitter glue, and then the other 2 are regular primers. I really don't have a need for more than 1 regular eyelid primer at a time, but I do want to, I'm curious to try the ABH one too, so I probably will keep it, and it's not that big of a deal to me to have more than 2 if the number is still quite small, but that's where we are with that. For brows, my goal was to have no more than 3 brow products this year. I started the year with 3 and I still have 3. So I have 1 pomade and 2 brow gels. I would like to lower my goal to 2 instead of 3 because I really don't have a need for more than just 1 pomade and 1 gel at a time. So once I use it, my e.l.f. Wow Brow Gel will probably be used up soon-ish. And then after that, I don't want to have any more than 1 brow gel at a time, hopefully. Next for eyeliner, my goal this year was 8. I started the year with 7, and I now have 6. That does include the ABH liner that hasn't come yet. I think 8 is going to continue to be my goal. It's nice because I do sometimes like to have a few colorful eyeliner options, and that feels like a good number to me, not too excessive. For mascara, my goal has always been to have no more than 2 at a time, and ideally only 1 of those should be open at a time, and then maybe have 1 on backup if necessary. There was one time in 2020 that I think I had 4 mascaras open at a time, which was way too many, and I have gotten that number back down to 1. I currently have 1, but the ABH mascara is also part of that vault. I think it's a mini, so that one will be my backup for when I run out of the Marcel one that I'm using, and that'll be perfect. I really want to try to reduce my mascara consumption in 2021. That was one area in my 2020 makeup empties where I felt like I just had a lot. You know, I think I used up like 5 mascaras and 1 lash primer, so I would hope to maybe only have like 3 or 4 mascaras in my next year's empty, so we'll try to stick to that. But I really think the way to do that is to just keep 1 open at a time and try not to have too many backups. In my last inventory, I had a category for lash primer, and I had 1 at that time, and my goal was 1. I used up that lash primer, and I don't want to buy lash primer again. I think I'm gonna just lower my goal to 0 and try not to have any of those in the future, just because I don't really feel like it's a necessary step for me in my routine, and it's 1 less product for me to purchase and use up. Next for eyeshadow palettes, so this is one where I did go a bit over my goal this year. My goal this year was 15. I started the year with 12. I now have 18, so I have gone 3 over my goal, which is a lot. In the picture you'll only see 17 because I am counting the sultry one that I just bought but that hasn't arrived yet. So I am going to adjust my goal a bit since my palette collection has grown. I'm going to adjust the goal to 20. And I do feel an eyeshadow palette declutter coming on. I have a very hard time letting go of palettes. I hardly ever get rid of them, but I do feel like there are some palettes in my collection that have gone unused. I kind of want to do a video where I swatch every eyeshadow I own, like by color family, so I can kind of see where I have overlap and where I maybe have gaps, so that I can try to be a little bit more mindful of my palette purchases moving forward. I do feel like once I get the Sultry palette, I probably won't feel the need to keep the Urban Decay Naked Reloaded palette because they're similar, and I just have a feeling the Sultry palette's gonna be better quality. I haven't tried it yet, but that's my guess. And I think there's a few more that I could maybe let go of, so I do want to try to curate my palette collection a little bit, but I also see myself wanting to try some new palettes next year. I love trying palettes. I love having some variety in that area, so I'm fine with adjusting that number to 20. Next, for the category of eyeshadow duos, trios, and quads. For this category, my goal this year was 5, which now that I think about it, that's kind of a lot. I currently only have 2, and I'm happy with that, but I also am fine with growing a bit there. Also, I'm still working on panning my Wet n Wild Walking on Eggshells quad, which is taking forever, but hopefully I can have that done in 2021, and that would bring that number down even more. For single magnetic eyeshadows, this category has not changed for the last year. I started the year with a goal of 25, and I had 20, and I still have the same 20 that I had at the beginning of the year. Really haven't been that into magnetic singles much this year, but I can see myself maybe adding a few more to my collection. I do want to try the brand Clarity Cosmetics, and I think I want to add some more fun, colorful shades to my collection so that I can hopefully get rid of the Profusion Spectrum palette. I don't love the quality of that palette, but I love having those shades in my collection, so I think I just want to replace that palette with a few select singles. So I'm going to keep the goal of 25 because I don't see myself going over that number this year. Next, I have a separate category for individually packaged single shadows, and in the past I've combined these with liquid eyeshadows. I actually decided to separate those two categories as well and have one category for liquid eyeshadows and one category for regular single shadows. I started the year with a goal of 12, but again, that was when I also included liquid shadows in this category, and I did start the year with 10, including liquid shadows. Now I'm down to 6, and this is with liquid shadows taken out. And I did go ahead and lower the goal to 8. I do tend to reach for palettes more often than these single shadows, even though I like having those kind of one and done single shadows. I like doing more complicated looks on a daily basis as opposed to just a one and done look, so I really don't need to have 10 of these. That just feels like way too many, especially considering how long it takes me to pan these things. And then for liquid shadows, which I'm now separating from regular single shadows, my goal this year is going to be 5, and I currently have 3. One of them is the e.l.f. Matte Liquid Eyeshadow in Soft Beige. One of them is the e.l.f. Liquid Glitter Shadow, and then the other one is the Becca Light Gleam in Refract. Now that is a dual-ended liquid eyeshadow, but I'm just counting that as one liquid eyeshadow just because it is one product, and I mainly only use the blue side anyway. So moving on to lipsticks, this is a category that I'm very proud of. I have really done a great job minimizing my lipstick collection. I mean, I still wouldn't call it a minimal lipstick collection, but it is smaller than it was at one point. So my goal this year was 30, which is honestly way more than I want to have at a time now. And I started the year with 28. There was also a point in the year that I had 29, so I was inching very close to that 30 mark. And I am now down to 21 lipsticks, which I know is still a lot, but for me that's really good. And I really want to try not to let it grow too much more this year. And if anything, I'd like to shrink it even more. But I did go ahead and lower the goal from 30 to 25. 25 is still honestly more than I'd like to have. I think 20 or even 15 would be a great number. But knowing myself and the fact that I probably will still try more lipstick formulas in 2021, I'd like to leave a little bit of room to grow. In 2020, I really got more into panning lipsticks. I think I panned 3 lipsticks. Now 2 of those were minis, but still, I mean, I counted each of those minis as one product in my numbers. So I'd like to pan even more in 2021. I also did declutter quite a few lipsticks in 2020 as well, so really happy with that. I feel like that was a big success for me. Lip gloss, I'm actually right where I started at the beginning of 2020, so my goal this year was 8. I started the year with 7. I still have 7. I did use up the NYX Butter Gloss. I also decluttered a couple of lip glosses, and I think I brought in 3 new glosses, so that balanced it right back out to 7. My goal is still gonna be 8 in 2021. I feel like that's a good, reasonable number. I love lip gloss. I feel like 8 is kind of a lot, but it's also a number that I'm happy with. And then lip liner, my goal this year was 5. I started the year with 3. There was actually a point that I had 6, and I am now back down to 4. So I did use up 1 lip liner, and I also think I decluttered 1. So that's how I brought that number down a little bit. And hopefully, I don't feel like I need a lot of lip liners. I don't wear lip liner every day, and I mainly like to use like a slightly deeper nude lip liner most days if I'm using a lip liner at all. And then I also like to have like 1 red lip liner, and I've had the same red lip liner for like 5 years. I mean, it's still fine. Like, it's a pencil that you sharpen, so I feel like those don't really go bad as quickly as maybe a retractable one might. I'm not sure. I don't know where I got that idea, but I'm pretty sure, does anybody agree with me on that? I feel like it stays fresher longer. So yeah, that's my lip liner number. So that is where my inventory stands right now. I think in my last inventory update 3 months ago, I was not very happy with where I was. There were several categories that I had gone over my goal number, and now in most categories, I'm comfortably under my goal number, with a few adjustments made here and there. So with the new goal numbers, the categories that I really need to focus on and try to keep in check in 2021 are face powders, blush, highlight, and brows. Those are the main ones that I need to keep an eye on. Try not to grow anymore, maybe try to paint a few things, and also maybe think about decluttering them. I typically don't like to declutter things. I prefer to use them up or find ways to use them even if I don't love them. But in some cases, like especially in the highlighter category, I'm concerned that some of my highlighters are just gonna sit and expire before I use them up, and I'd rather pass them on to friends and hopefully not let my highlighter collection get back up to this level, because I really just think for me 13 highlighters is way too many. As much as I love highlighters, a lot of them have a very similar effect on my cheeks, so I may be better off decluttering some of the ones that I don't feel like I need in my life. I just did a like full collection clean out declutter at the beginning of December. I probably won't do another one for a little while, but probably in the first quarter of 2021. There may be like a category specific declutter for like eyeshadow palettes or highlighters. I may not need to do like a full collection clean out again. So that wraps up my makeup inventory for 2020, and it also kind of kicks us off with some new goal numbers for 2021. I do plan to continue doing quarterly updates, if that sounds good to everyone, unless y'all have a different idea for what you want me to do. But I felt like that was good. I think the year before last I did every 6 months, and that was like not quite enough to keep the numbers fresh in my mind. But anyway, I think that is it for today's video. I'll link all my past makeup inventory videos down below if you want to watch any of those, if you really enjoy these kinds of videos. I know I do. I love when people start posting their makeup inventories at the beginning of the year. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you've not already. I'd love to see you again very soon, and hopefully I will talk to you tomorrow in my next video. Bye.